All right, it's the 16th of December, and Kev and I we are meeting to discuss and review the what's the name of the visualizer? I'm so
Pipeline
sorry.
visualizer.
Pipeline duration visualizer. Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll just go through some questions and some discussion points to determine like how do we arrive at an iteration plan and what should be the definition of done for the very first iteration that will be added to the product. How are we going to track the feedback and incorporate that into like what we are going to do in future iterations? All right. So yeah, this is the epic that is by. All right, this is the one that I have created. Sorry, but anyway, that's also relevant. And let me find what I was here to find.
The one from the runner team.
Yes.
Because I think I've heard of an effort that they wanted to do this, but
Mhm.
I've probably also been shared the link, but I haven't looked into it before. Because I think their priority was like on a higher level and not so deep into pipelines. So it's not job by job, but it's like overall for pipelines. Because that's something we're also working on outside of the product.
Right. They have this specific issue that says contextualize job duration as a histogram in the job log sidebar.
Mhm.
This seems to be, I mean, you can correct me, but this seems to be an issue that's more closely related with the work that you're doing.
Um, okay, so we are doing in developer experience, we're doing two things. On the one hand, it's a like a per pipeline, kind of three, but two things. Like one thing per pipeline. So you have a pipeline and you look into this pipeline and more like broader trends. And for broader trends, we have Snowflake, and I've also written a custom software called Subparticle, which is basically like Snowflake takes all the job information and graphs it. So it's like the CI/CD insights that they're sharing in the mockups.
Mhm.
And then this is more what the duration tab, the visualizer, what we call it, outside of the product. What that does is like just looking at one pipeline, how the durations for this one pipeline.
Okay. All right. So, get it. Before we get to like more questions around goal and vision, I just want to like share this epic with you to get your reaction. So something that I figured out was like I did not find any well-documented list of requirements for the MVC itself, and I don't know like if you are approaching in this whole solution in iterations, but I suggested that we set up tracking. I created the issue for that, like so that we have data flowing in for how many users are using this, how useful this is. I mean, yes, we know that this is pretty useful, but data is going to help us make more confident decisions and also make a case for why we should be prioritizing this. Then also feedback issues so that people can come in and drop, yeah, some qualitative feedback on their experience of using it. And then I suggested that we define the future iteration. But like, do
Yeah,
you already have any plans for what you want? What
yeah.
more do you want?
So outs like the pipeline visualizer, right? It's already a thing. It's just outside of the product.
Right.
Um, and so we've been using it quite a lot to improve pipeline durations and everything.
Mhm.
Um, okay, it doesn't want to load for me right now. Um, but what I'm trying to do is to bring like the smallest possible thing to as fast as possible to team members and go from there. Um, because not everyone's aware of that we have this visualizer and this question sometimes pops up. Oh, what's this thing again to look into pipelines? And I want to bring this thing into the product. So it's just um my initial idea was to just have basically what I've already done is have all the jobs just visible in a graph. On the x-axis is time, y-axis is just job by job.
Hmm.
Um, in the pipeline visualizer that we already have that exists outside of the product, we also group them by, so like if you have a parallel job, so you have like RSpec 1 out of 20, you would group them together. You would be able to see, oh, this is a job that triggers another pipeline. So you could click into this, and that would, in our visualizer, would show the durations for that pipeline. You could see the critical path. Um, and like my idea for the first iteration is to just have the simplest possible solution so engineers can look at it for any project, just clicking on the tab, and then
Hmm.
slowly bring it up to par with what we have in the visualizer right now. And maybe later, um, then we're like, what we want to do for the visualizer outside the product, then maybe have like a visualization for the critical path. So it's not just one line at the top, but it's like in the graph somehow, so you can better see it, see other jobs that might impact that. Yeah,
Okay. So this is what I listed. Like, this is just something that came out of the discussion on the merge request that it should only show for when the pipeline has finished execution. And then allow users to view duration for each job, allow users to view the critical path of execution. And then one thing that we have to be careful about if like everything that's being used is pajamas compliant. Did you take care of this? Like, did you look into
I
whether or
did
not?
not. We have something for tracing
Uh-huh.
that is similar in at least the way it's represented. So you have like for tracing, it's calls to functions basically. And we've tried to use it for pipelines before, but it's very cumbersome because just the feature is not intended for that. So maybe we could look into that and borrow some of the design there.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, you can also like create a separate issue for how to make like what tokens and components to use. Right now, there's not a lot happening in the graph, so I think it will be much easier. And I've specifically mentioned like in-graph interactions and actions are not something that you'll be looking at for the MVC. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay, perfect.
it's just yeah, just having all the jobs. And if like what we do right now, I think it's also in the MR that it's when you click on a job, you get sent to the job log. That's also what we have
Hmm.
in the outside visualizer right now.
Right. So it's mostly going to be like I'm not sure who exactly is going to be the DRI on the design side for this, but eventually they'll have to collaborate with the pipeline authoring team because, yeah, there's a possibility that we don't need multiple visualizers and like hitting a middle path somewhere so that
Hmm.
this one's enough. Um, all right. So I had some questions regarding like what the goal was when your team started to work on this.
Yeah. Um, Originally, it was just a critical path visualizer. It was just text-based. But then it was shortly after I joined, so I wanted to be able to look at pipelines. And we were also talking about optimizing um, the duration of pipelines. It's like pipeline efficiency is such a critical thing when you have like even just one job that's on a stage that's blocking a lot of other jobs that could already run. um, you could shift that left. So it's on the one hand, it's about pipeline efficiency. So like run less jobs, run them faster, and also faster feedback. So can we run a job earlier? It's moving things left to the beginning of the pipeline. So it's two things, efficiency and shifting jobs left so you get faster feedback for developers.
Got it. Okay. And in terms of vision, what was the vision that you had started off with, and how far do you think you and your team have made it?
Yeah. I what I've said before in our team is that it's pretty much done for what we need it for. There's like always things we have in mind that we could improve. We've thought about um features like you can hover over a job, like this histogram is a nice feature. So you can see, oh, this job is like usually it's much shorter what's happening. So you can see things that are unusual by looking at that graph. But so far, it's from my side, what we have outside of the product is pretty much finished for being able to look into pipelines. Could have some
Okay,
more auxiliary features, but it's very useful already.
got it. Then, yeah, what are the parts that you have the most confidence in? So I'm asking these questions so that whichever team is the TRI would know like which parts to validate with users, where to seek more feedback for refinement and stuff. So what are the things that you have the most confidence in?
Um, hmm. Most confidence.
Like think parts that are absolutely working and doesn't need much improvement.
Yeah. Yeah. The most confidence would be just at least outside of the product, how it's displayed. So like the rendering stuff. I know Peyton had some problems. Maybe I've um created a bug while porting it to GitLab.
Mhm.
But like outside of the product that works, so like the rendering and displaying all the jobs that works. Um, Least confidence would be like, for example, I think Rodvik and I already talked about that we like job retries, right? It's under ideal circumstances, this is beautiful. This is a great tool. But what if you have to retry a job? So what do we do with that? What if you have to retry a job and this would kick off? So you have like one job that prepares stuff and would give you an artifact, and this artifact, like some cache or some binaries, those would be used by the next jobs, and so they don't start. Then you try this job because it failed, it succeeds, and you have all these other jobs that are starting. How do you display that? That is um not a solved issue. We haven't solved it with the visualizer. I've one button that would hide all the outliers, but that would not give you an insight um into the duration, right? Because you don't care that much about like wall time. You It's certainly important to some extent when there's like a failure, but just to if you're I would be using this with the mindset of I want to improve like pipeline duration or like efficiency, running less or shifting left. So I would look at this, and any time where like no job runs is completely irrelevant this time. But it's pretty hard because there can just happen so many things. Like the job fails, you retry it a day later, you retry it a day later, or like a few hours later. And if you were to visualize that, there would be like this huge gap in the graph. These are things that aren't solved.
All right. Okay. Um, I honestly don't have much questions. I was expecting others would join and they would like chime in.
Mm.
So what I'll do is, do you want to add anything? Otherwise, I would just like stop the recording and hand it over to Gina to look at.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I can give you an example link just for like you or like anyone else um of the existing visualizer because I don't think I've linked one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just neat to use and look through.
Okay.
Let
You
me
want to
check.
share your screen?
I can also share my screen, yes.
I think that would be nice.
Okay, let me okay, here. There we go. So, right, it's like an outside app, so you would go to the URL and paste in the pipeline. And if you go to one pipeline, um, so right, it's per pipeline, just like in the how it would be in the product, and you would see all the jobs that are here. Let me zoom in a little bit. You see all the jobs here. Again, time is on the x-axis, and you see these are starting later. because they depend on another job. So this is one of the things that would be cool. If you like hover over a job that you would see, oh, it's depending on this job. And it finishing would cause other jobs to run. So that would be cool to visualize. Um, what we already have is that this is we have like 44 parallel jobs, and right there like all collapsed because in the end, if you want to dig into like the aspect unit tests or like this is like the fastest with like an indicator that's fastest. This takes 21 minutes, but the whole thing takes 33. So this is like a balancing problem. So like
Hmm.
your sharding problem. So you'd try to optimize that. But in terms of the whole pipeline duration, I have this in a folder. So it's because the slowest job makes the pipeline the slowest. So and that's why this is important. Like all the artifacts collectors and the coverage generation in the end. Um, we have a few buttons, like skip time outliers. I don't know why it does something here. I might have broken that, but it would skip. Um, I think it only really works when you have like a pipeline where it's like you retry a job in like 24 hours later, because then all the jobs that take now 6 minutes that are like 6 minutes are like, I don't know, like 2 centimeters on my screen, 3 centimeters on my
Hmm.
screen. That would be like 1 pixel, right? So this skipping time outliers, that's something we've tried to remove all the jobs that are like to the far right, and then we'd like basically have this view already. Another one that I find particularly useful for in optimizing durations is the skip atomic jobs checkbox. And an atomic job, for the purpose of the pipeline visualizer, is defined as any job that has no connection, so it's not needed by any job, and it does not need any job, so it just runs atomically at the start of the pipeline, or start of the pipeline. Um, and it's less than 80% of the time. So it has, unless something like unexpected happens, it could not impact the critical path of the pipeline. And
Okay.
this makes it useful if you have like some, like here we have the Rails production server boot Puma example in CNG. They take 3 minutes. The pipeline is almost an hour. If we enable skip atomic jobs, they'll just be removed from the visualization because they are not relevant if I want to optimize the whole run of the pipeline. I could say, okay, yeah, I want to run less compute, spend less money on it, but it's
Hmm.
not relevant to the full time the pipeline runs. Yeah.
Got it. All right. So, I mean, the primary goal here is to be able to optimize the pipeline based on the insights that you're receiving from this visualization.
Yes,
Perfect.
exactly. Yeah. Um, we had this is more product focused. Oh, you can't see that. Let me turn on the light mode.
Hmm.
There we go. Light mode. This is the old renderer that I wrote first. That's just rendering as technically we could do it in the product, but I don't think it's that beautiful or that aesthetic useful. I don't know. That was our first iteration, or my first iteration as a renderer. It's a mermaid chart that uses the Gantt chart. So I would just generate this text and throw it into mermaid. And the cool thing about this, it has sections. So what I did for optimizing, like for example, jest tests, I would just take all the jobs that are relevant for the jest job and put them in a subgraph. Um, but I didn't add that to the new renderer because it was not that much useful because like I can optimize jest as much as I want. The most important part here would be to get the aspect jobs to run faster because jest is like finished like in less than half an hour. So it's not relevant. Might be something
Okay.
just for the record. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. I think like a set of interviews with users just to like look at it and share their opinion would be very helpful
Hmm.
if someone can do that. Okay, so I will document all of this and I'll share it with my team. Stopping the recording here. Thank you so much.